Hey everyone, Scott here, and I wanted to respond to Mamo's video. He made a video about the Lord's Prayer in Psalm 23 and the different language and versions. Rather than making a really long comment on his video, I thought I'll just make a video. So here we are. And I apologize, the dryer and washer are running and it's a little noisy and I still have a bit of a cold, but if I don't make the video now, I probably won't bother. So we're looking at a United Methodist hymnal. I grew up in the UMC. About half of my childhood, we had this hymnal. And what's interesting here is we actually get all three versions Mamo talked about. We have it with sins, we have it with trespasses, and we have it with debts and debtors. This is the version I grew up with, trespasses. And we see it mentions it's from the ritual of the former Methodist Church, number 895. Our bulletin always said when you came to the Lord's Prayer, number 895, just to make sure you knew. 896 is from the Evangelical United Brethren Church. That's the other church that joined with the Methodist Church to form the UMC. And then 894 is the ecumenical text. I don't exactly know where that came from, but I'm guessing probably some kind of a ecumenical group of churches, probably largely Protestant mainline churches, and they said this is the version we can all agree on. But we used this, which is not surprising because the church I attended was a Methodist church before it was a United Methodist church. If we go back to former Methodist hymnals, we see that throughout. So here's the 1960s hymnal, which later was called Book of Hymns because they became the United Methodist Church. And I'm looking in the wrong place. That is for something else. If we look at the service that's in the beginning here, find it. Lord's Prayer, trespasses. And then we can go back a little bit further. This is the 1939 Methodist hymnal, which is before my time. I did have this when I was real young. We had that one. There's some other stuff here in the beginning, which I was trying to skip over. Whoops. But now in the order of worship here, it says Lord's Prayer, and it doesn't tell you the words because what kind of heathen doesn't know the Lord's Prayer, right? But if we go into the ritual, which was referenced by the 1989 hymnal. Here we go, the ritual of the Methodist Church, which is referring to the Lord's Supper, Holy Communion. We see that we do get the words to the Lord's Prayer here, and it is trespasses and trespass. And that all makes a lot of sense because the Methodist Church, of course, is the church that came out of the work and teachings of John Charles Wesley. The Wesley brothers were Anglican priests. The Anglican Church in the traditional Book of Common Prayer has trespasses. So that's where that comes from. That's what I grew up with, and that is what I prefer simply because it's what I know. The current church I attend, Anabaptist Church, uses debts and debtors. So I always have to kind of remember that on Sunday mornings at church. The rest of the time I use trespasses. As for Psalm 23, again, I grew up in a church that recited Psalm 23 with some regularity, and it was always the King James Version. Now, the 89 hymnal, what it does, it has a psalter which is based on the NRSV, and I've talked about that some before. I just happened to open to this beginning of the psalter. I wasn't trying to. That's nice. It's based on the NRSV, but it's not the NRSV. It's been modified in places. And anyways, I've got an old video on the 89 UMC hymnal where I talk about that some, but this is the version they include, which is based on the NRSV, and I don't know offhand how much it does or doesn't match it. We never read this version. What you see down here, for the King James Version 1611, see number 137. So this is, looks like 754. So I've marked that one. It's 137 with the other end of this ribbon. Too far. Oh, that's a great hymn. Great is thy faithfulness. I love that one. And here we are. Here is Psalm 23, King James Version with responses, and that is the version that we always recited in church. I don't think we used the responses. I don't remember using them. Just reciting the psalm as it's shown here. So, Memo is shown in the 2019 ACNA Book of Common Prayer. They have the King James Version and the New Coverdale version side by side. So we had kind of the same thing where you had both versions here, but they were on separate pages rather than being together. And if you have the standalone New Coverdale Psalter, which I do, that does not include the King James Version. So that only has the New Coverdale version. Just going to look just to show you. This is interesting, I thought, too, because again, this hymnal was also part of my childhood, as this was used up until 1989. And it has, so all the biblical text in this hymnal is largely the RSV, which makes sense for Methodist Church at the time. But you see here, Psalm 23, they use the King James Version. And this is not a complete Psalter that they have here. They have, you see, they only do parts of some Psalms. Some Psalms aren't included at all. It's just certain ones. But for Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, they don't include the Psalm numbers at the top. I don't really think this is a particularly great Psalter myself. But it is the entirety of the King James Version of Psalm 23. So that was the version that we always used, probably because of being used to it from tradition. It was interesting to note, too, if you look, if I can find, yeah, we have the Coverdale is used for some of these readings, which clearly come from the Anglican Book of Common Prayer, even ones that are apocryphal. So that's interesting. I don't remember reading any of those in church, but so yeah, that's it really. I don't have anything to really say about it. That's what I grew up with. I prefer the Trespasses version of the Lord's Prayer. Psalm 23, I'm good with most any version. The King James Version, of course, is very familiar, but just wanted to share that. Anyways, hope you all have a wonderful day. If you have anything you'd like to share, I invite you to do so in the comments below, and I'll include a link to Memo's video. God bless, and we'll see you for the next video.